I currently have a pretty average number of physical TBR books, but that doesn't mean some of these books haven't been on the shelf longer than necessary. So my mission, should I choose to accept it, Girl, get out of that chair. My mission, now that I have accepted it, is to eliminate the books on the shelf one by one until this shelf is completely Yes.
I know you're about to say something really ambitious, but could you aim for a little less delusion for my sake, please?
I swear, readers these days. We're gonna eliminate the books on the shelf until it is half empty. That's 3 shelves, stop counting. At the beginning of each month's episode, I will use a random number generator to select the book that will be read. The hope is that the first book I pick will be the one to start off that episode. However, I will be allowing myself 2 chances to maneuver around the shelf in the hopes of finding that first book to read. I'm so excited, yeah, that's convincing enough, to get some of these physical books cleared off of this TBR shelf, so get ready to read or reap.
I have my random number generator pulled up 1 to 127, so let's... 4. Okay. Let me see what book number 4 is. So the 4th book on my shelf was Elysium Girls. So this says read the next book. So I'm going to see what the next book on the shelf is. The next book on the shelf was The Beholden, and this sticky note said read this book. So I could technically read the next book on the shelf if I wanted to skip this one, but I actually want to get this one off my shelf. It's a pretty thick book, so I'm going to stick with this one. I will share my thoughts as I read this and then pick the next book that I will read off my physical shelf. Oh, we are not starting this project off well at all. So I did start reading The Beholden by Cassandra Rose Clark, and I made it about 90 pages in, about right there. And that's only the start of chapter 3. And I've decided to DNF this book. This project will show you just how quickly I DNF books based on things. So this started out okay. We're just thrown into the story where we are watching these 2 women and this man traverse this river in this forest. What I pictured was like the Amazon rainforest. And they're trying to find something. We don't know what until we do. One of these women has the ability to like find gods, I guess. And she is trying to help her sister find this god to grant her a wish. And her wish is to find a husband, to get a husband, because their estate is failing and she needs a husband to like make it prosperous. So this guide goes with them, and he's just there, and they find this goddess, and she's like, okay, I will grant you your wishes since you found me, because I'm an impossible god to find. You 3 found me, so I will grant you your wish, but you 3 are going to be beholden to me. And the guy is like, whoa, 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 I'm not part of this deal. I'm just helping them. I had no idea what I was doing. And she's like, well, you're here, so now you're beholden to me as well. So that part was interesting because I was like, okay, I'm piecing this together as I go, which I don't mind when authors do that. Like, I like to be plopped into a story and just figure things out on my own. But then the next chapter, I don't know how far in the future it goes. It could have been months. It could have been years. I have no freaking clue. It didn't tell me. We're just watching the sister who wanted the husband. Her estate is now prosperous, and she's just sitting around gossiping with the people in her community or whatever. And then we jump to her sister's perspective, and her sister is at this like university trying to learn how to become a mage, I think it's a mage. But her professors are wanting her to study more of like this other magic. But she's like, no, I want to learn how to do this magic. And they're like, no, 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 you have to do this magic. So she's giving into that. And then we jump from that perspective to the guy's perspective. And now he is like the consort to this other god. Meanwhile, he's beholden to this god. And then we jump back to the sister's perspective, who has the husband and whatnot. And these travelers have come to her place, and they're trying to find her husband. And so we just jump from point of view to point of view, and that's only in the 2nd chapter. And like nothing was Nothing was explained. Like, I don't mind being plopped into a story and figuring stuff out, but at almost 100 pages, I should have some inkling of what the fuck is going on in this story. And I just wasn't. I'm like, when are we going to get to some sort of adventure or something like that? So it was a struggle for me to even get to the 90-page mark in this, but I did it because I wanted to finish out a chapter. And then I went and I looked at reviews for this book. And on Storygraph, this book has a 2.9 star review. 2.9. That's not even a 3-star review. That's a 2.9. And so I was like, holy hell, this must be an awful book. I don't know what the reviews are like on Goodreads or Amazon. I should have looked at that just to like determine if it's even across the board. But I read some of the reviews and people said that this was just a lot of meandering around and nothing much happened in it. And if I was bored into the second chapter where nothing was happening and we were jumping from point of view to point of view to point of view to point of view, I don't want to finish reading this book where nothing much is going to happen other than them just traveling around and doing that same thing of point of view jumping. It's not my jam. So yeah, I'm gonna DNF this book. So that's going bye-bye. So what I need to do now is I need to pick another random number. So we're no longer at 127 books. We're at 133 books because I added some books to the shelf since start of the year. I don't think I did a haul. I don't think these were in a Christmas book haul. So I'll show them to you really quick. I did get Goldfinch. This came from Crystal at Books Forever After, so thank you, Crystal. I haven't put sticky notes on these yet for prompts. I'm going to do that here in a second. But I got that one to add. I also won The Wrong Lady Meets Lord Right in a giveaway. This looks like a historical romance, and I actually don't mind this art style on this cover. It's a little bit more detailed than just like a cartoon. But this I heard was really sweet, and I do like my sweet romances, so I got that. I then used a gift card to go to Barnes & Noble, so I didn't spend money on these two books, but I got Lightning in Her Hands, which is a contemporary romance with some magical realism, I believe. And I got the Woodsmoke Woman's Book of Spells, which is like a witchy romance, I believe. And then I went to an indie bookstore. I think you will have seen my Bookstore Adventure vlog by the time this vlog comes out. So you will have seen me haul these already. But I picked up The Contortionist, which is a dark carnival. I picked up Under Lock and Key, which is a Loch Ness monster shifter type story, I guess. And then I picked up The Hollow and the Haunted, which is a gay YA romance. So 133 we're at now. So let me ask Alexa, because I don't have my thing to randomize a number. Let me ask Alexa to pick me a random number between 1 and 133. Alexa, can you pick me a random number between 1 and 133? She picked 34. Book number 34 was A Ruinous Fate, and the post-it says, read 5 books back. So I gotta go 5 books backwards on the shelf. 1, 2, 3, 4. Ooh, okay. That book ended up being Night of the Witch by Sarah Rosh and Beth Revis. Now, I could skip this one if I wanted to, because this one says read the book next to me, but I actually want to read this book. This is a YA romance about a witch and a witch hunter, and if you all don't know by now, I really enjoy that dynamic. So I'm excited to read this one, and hopefully it goes better than the last one. So I will give you an update once I maybe make progress in this if I don't DNF it, but wish me luck. So don't be expecting updates as I go through these books. I finished reading Night of the Witch by Sarah Rosh and Beth Revis. I was actually buddy reading this with Amanda at Amanda's Booktopia. So I didn't know a lot about this book other than it was a witch hunter story, which gave me vibes of Serpent and Dove, one of my favorite witch hunter series. And this was YA. So that's all I knew going in. This is about a young woman named Fritzy who is a green witch, and she watches her entire coven community be slaughtered by these witch hunters in the beginning of this book. And she thinks that her cousin was taken, and so she sets out on this mission to go to the city to try and find her cousin if she is still alive, because she thinks she is. And Fritzy she's a green witch, she's a good witch or whatever, so she's been taught, but she keeps hearing these voices in her head telling her to do things and use this wild magic, which is a very, forbidden magic for witches. It's the remnants of any evil magic that has been done. And so she keeps hearing this, and she's trying to not give into that. And when she is on the road to the city to try and find her cousin, she encounters Otto, who is a witch hunter. He is the second in command of this group of witch hunters known as the Hexenjägers, which means witch hunter in German. This is a German-inspired Serpent and Dove, whereas Serpent and Dove was French-inspired. This is German-inspired. This is also set more in the real world than Serpent and Dove was. Serpent and Dove was completely a fantasy story, whereas this is set in a historic German setting. And when these two meet, there is a bit of a tension between them because he is a witch hunter, she is a witch. But what she doesn't know is that Otto has been climbing the ranks within this witch hunter guild because he witnessed his mother be accused of witchcraft and murdered, and so he wants to take out the Hexenjägers, but she doesn't know that, and he has done a really good job of making the people in charge believe that he is for this cause. This does have very Christian versus pagan sentiments to it, but he says in the book he's a Christian, he believes in God, but he doesn't believe in the church. The church has done nothing for him. So he is pushing back against that. And when they are trying to track down her cousin, and he is in the process of trying to help free all of these either innocent people who have been accused of witchcraft or actual witches, they are attracted to each other and they form a relationship. And it leads into her and him discovering some things about their family lineages and things like that. And we do get introduced to some pagan gods within the story as well. So I feel about this book sort of how I feel about When the Moon Hatched. Nothing in common as far as story goes, but my enjoyment of them. It was a pretty average story, but there were things about it that made it unique and stand out to me. So for that reason, I am going to give this a 3.5 star. I liked the witch hunter dynamics. That is always something I'm going to enjoy. I liked the German inspirations in here with German phrases and the German setting. I'm German. I took German in high school. I was pretty good at it too. But I did have to switch from reading this physically to listening to the audiobook because there were some phrases where I was like, I think I know how that's pronounced, but I want to make sure. Our main girl, Fritzy, I wanted to make sure I was saying her name right as well because I wasn't entirely sure if it was said somehow different. So I did listen to the audio for the majority of this book. This book does have some darker themes to it, and it does have some very tense situations, including animal abuse, torture, confinement, witch burnings, abuse, all that. And while most of the scenes aren't really delved into and they aren't spent a lot of time on, there are some scenes in this book that do get very detailed with the torture of these witches. So keep that in mind. It does have a little bit of a darker undertone to it. I don't know if this is going to be a series or a duology, but I know the second book is already out. I've seen it, and it's much thinner than this book, which doesn't really make me think that it's going to be good. Because, like, the epilogue of this book switches to a different character's point of view. And when I was listening to that part of the audiobook, I was like, holy shit, that's intense. But I don't know if I care enough about it to continue reading the second book, because like I said, it's much shorter, and I feel like if it wasn't for that epilogue, this book would have been fine as a standalone. The epilogue is what really made it so that this book could continue on. But as for the main two characters, Otto and Fritzi, this is a dual perspective book, audiobook. I appreciated that it was dual cast narrated, actually multicast with that last epilogue, but for the most part dual cast. I liked that. However, the female main character, the narrator, she made Fritzi sound like she was 10 years old, and I did not like that. I hated listening to her point of view because she sounded like a child. And I really didn't feel the chemistry between Fritzi and Otto. They fell into this insta-love really quickly. They go from, I don't know if I can trust him because he's a witch hunter, to, ooh, I'm attracted to him, ooh, I'm attracted to her, she's this really feisty woman, blah, 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 really, really quick. So there wasn't any of that underlying tension for this being marketed as an enemies to lovers story, which it is, and I don't agree with that. The fact that they are witch hunter is the only enemy dynamic there. The characters themselves are not enemies to lovers. Just this matter of, I met this stranger who has a different way of life than me. I know nothing about them other than that, so that's why I'm gonna hate them. But once they get to like spend a couple days together, they're fine with one another. That, not enemies to lovers. And if Otto truly was the bad guy that he portrays, it would have been a little bit more enemies to lovers. But Otto is a good guy. He's just pretending to be a bad guy. And so it really doesn't lend well to that enemies lovers dynamic. I don't know that I will remember this book by the end of the year, quite honestly. So I'm going to give it a 3.5 because I do think there is something genuinely unique about this story that stands out. It's just not enough to like be wow. I would say if you're interested in witch stories, if you're interested in that witch hunter dynamic, you might check this out. You might enjoy it. That being said, I finally finished a book, yay. And now it is time to move on and pick the next book in this video. So I have to count how many books are on the shelf because I did also take a book off the shelf that I was reading outside of this little video project that I ended up DNFing. So let me quickly do a recalculation of how many books are on the shelf, and then we will pick the next number. Okay, so there are currently 129 books on the shelf because I got rid of the one that I was listening to on audio and DNF'd, and then I also took off the book that is my Black Hat Book Coven pick for this month as well. So we're up to 129 now, which isn't too bad. Let me ask Alexa to give me a random number. Alexa, can you give me a random number between 1 and 129? Okay, 59. Let me figure out which book is number 59. Book number 59 was The Secret Ingredient by Katie Fisher, and this one says 9 books next, which means 9 more books on the shelf. So let me figure out what I'm gonna read. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. All right, that book is Damsel by Evelyn Skye, and this sticky note says read this book. So I will be reading Damsel next, which is a book that I've been curious about. I know this is a show on Netflix because there's literally a permanent sticker that says a show on Netflix. So I know nothing about this other than like a queen and some dragons. I don't know. I'm hoping it's good. If it's good, maybe I'll watch the show. Who knows? But we are going to see what this one is about. So wish me some luck. Okay, I feel like I actually need to give a freaking update on a book.
and not just finish these books and be like, this is what I thought when I read it. So I am about 100 pages into Damsel right now, and for some reason when I picked this book up, I thought it was adult, but I actually think it's YA. I didn't really read the synopsis too in depth. All I saw on here was a dragon, and I think I read something about like this girl and dragons. That's all I knew, and it's been a while since I purchased this book, so I had completely forgotten anything, if I had read anything other than that. So I basically knew nothing about this going into it. But we were following this girl named Elodie. I don't know what her fucking name is. I call her Ellie because I don't like her name. She's Ellie. But she is a princess of this very poor desert type country or whatnot, and she is put into an arranged marriage with this like prince from this very wealthy island nation. So she shows up and everything is like gold, and there's like so much food, and she's just wondering how people can live like this while her people are starving and whatnot. And she starts to notice some weird things upon showing up. Like, she thinks, like, the ceiling is moving, and she, like, touches things and sees, like, visions. And then she's out riding one day with her fiance, and she, like, saves this little girl from being bullied. And this little girl is like, who's gonna save you? And then this little girl, like, interrupts their wedding ceremony, and she's like, this needs to stop. So I got the sense that she was probably going to be like a sacrifice for these dragons, because I feel like this story is going in the way of like this island kingdom has to keep sacrificing somebody so that they're prosperous, right? And this prince probably had other wives or betrothals or maybe princesses before him or whatnot that they keep sacrificing because she's seeing these visions of like another woman or whatnot. And so I got the sense at like 50 pages that this was going to be one of those types of stories. And at 100 pages, I am correct. They pretty much dress her up for her wedding, you know, blah, blah, blah. They take her to this mountain and like strip her down and paint her and put her in this nice dress or whatnot. And then she's like forced to cross this bridge to this other ceremony where her lovely fiance, now husband, literally throws her over the edge of a cliff to sacrifice her to the dragons. And that is where I'm at right now. So I don't know where this book is gonna go. I'm sure she's gonna survive. I mean, come on, I have much of this book left. So I'm sure she's gonna survive. But there was this like mention that he had a brother. I'm sort of wondering if she's not like gonna, if his brother isn't somehow connected to the dragons or whatnot, and she's gonna like end up in some sort of romance with the brother. I don't fucking know. I'm assuming this has to have like some romance element to it somehow, it feeling like a YA novel. But I don't know how I feel about it. It reads like a pretty average YA story. And this girl is completely fucking clueless. Like, she's just like, oh, this is part of their tradition. I guess me being the new princess, I'll just go along with it. I'm like, girl, you have all these questions of like, this seems weird, and this seems weird. Like, bitch, do you have an intuition? Follow that thing. Like, don't just be prattling along because shit seems weird, but oh, tradition, fuck that shit. Like, girl, why are you so dumb? And what's even worse is that her own father put her into this marriage knowing this was going to happen because he wanted to, like, have their poor desert kingdom. He wanted to do what he had to do for the benefit of his people. And she didn't know that dear old daddy was sacrificing her for the betterment of their kingdom. So, I do know it is a show on Netflix, and I think I will probably finish this because I'm not, like, not enjoying it, you know? It's a rather quick read. I'm curious as to where it's gonna go. I'm interested in, like, these dragons.
it just reads white. Oh, another thing I don't like about this is, okay, so, like, the last 20 pages of this book, because, yes, I do flip to the back of the book first, is like a... Sorry, there was somebody walking by my window. The last 20 pages of this book is like a glossary of, like, a language that I'm assuming is this dragon language. And what annoys me is that in this book, they use this dragon language, which is totally fucking made up, right? And so it'll be like, blah, 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 this character said or whatnot. Like, I can't fucking read that. Like, it's a made up language, and I'm not gonna flip to the back of the book and study the damn language just for this made up freaking world. But as soon as the character blah, 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 the character said, like, Ellie will be like, oh, he said this in English. It's like, what's the point of putting that in here then? If you're just going to translate this freaking made-up language into English, what's the point of having it? I hate it when books do that. It's like, either stick with this fucking language and don't translate it, or just don't have it in the book at all. Because now it's just filler word count that's unnecessary, because, like, I can't read this language. So, and you can't tell me that, like, the audio narrators of this book would even understand how to say that. They probably have to ask the author. They're like, how do you say this? And then the author comes up with some jibber jabber bullshit because she made it up completely. And then they repeat it. It's like, what? I hate when books do that. That's so stupid. But anyway, other than those 2 minor gripes, or 3 minor gripes, I don't know how many gripes I gave, but aside from that, it is a quick read. I am curious, so I will probably finish it, and then I probably will watch the Netflix show just to see how it compares. But yeah, that's the update for now. Finished reading Damsel by Evelyn Skye, and I had some issues with this book, but overall, I'm going to give it a very low 4-star. So the things that I liked about this book were that it was a really fast-paced story. I did like that the dragon in here was the monster of this story until we, like, understand its motivations and things like that, and then it sort of changes in the last, like, 4th of the book. But I liked that for the most part. Seeing Ellie try and escape this dragon within this story was very thrilling. Although one of my things that I didn't like about this book was, even though her situations were very high stake and very tense, there was always something that came along to fix whatever her situation was. If she was injured, there was always something magical to fix it. When she's about to be captured, there's always something to fix it. So even though she is in these perilous situations and they're very tense when you're in them, you know that in the next chapter it's going to be fixed and the problem's going to be solved. I liked the sister dynamic in here. That was something that I had no idea was part of this story when I started reading it. This is not a romance. This is not a fantasy romance. This is not a romance. Nothing. This is an action adventure with some sibling dynamics in it. Her younger sister plays a part in moving the plot along toward the latter half of the story. I did really like the ending of this story and how it all came together. I did watch the movie on Netflix and it was fine. It wasn't like the worst thing I had ever seen. I knew right off the bat, I was like, man, this is one low budget ass movie because of the costumes and the wigs and things. But you know, it was fine. I do think the book is better than the movie because the book expands on the history of why these sacrifices are being made. The book fleshes out a lot of the scenes and it takes her longer to escape this dragon, where in the movie, it seemed like it went by really quickly and she really wasn't in as perilous a situation as she was in the book. I also thought the ending of the movie was not as good as the ending of this book. So I feel like if you have ever been curious about this, you should definitely read the book over watching the movie. But the movie was fine if you're like into low budget adventure type stories. Sure, go for it, but you're not missing much if you don't. Another part of the book versus the movie is, as I mentioned in this book, there is a completely made up language that the dragons use. And Ellie sort of picks up on certain words as she's escaping this dragon or whatnot. And she remembers that she's heard this language somewhere before. Don't ask me where the fuck, because it wasn't mentioned. But she is able to pick up on some of the language that the dragon speaks and whatnot. But as I mentioned, that is totally, completely fucking useless because the dragon just turns around and learns English, and whatever the dragon says, Ellie translates it into English for us. So it's pointless within this book. It was just something made up. And in the show, and I do believe that this book was based on the screenplay of the show, so I think the show screenplay was adapted first and then this book came second. So that would make sense for the show that language was not included within the show. The dragon spoke English in the show. Didn't even try to speak a different language. So I don't know why they felt the need to put that in a book when it doesn't do anything for the plot. It drove me crazy. But overall, it was a fun time. I read it really quickly and I liked a lot about it, but there were also some things that I didn't. And so for that reason, it's getting a low 4-star. I don't think I would ever reread this book just because it wasn't like a super standout memorable time, but it was a fun time while I was reading it. So that is going to bring us to the conclusion of episode 1 of Read or Reap. Let me go over the books that I read off my shelves in this episode. First of all, I tried to read The Beholden by Cassandra Rose Clark. I DNF'd this, so it is getting reaped. I then read Night of the Witch by Sarah Rosh and Beth Revis. I did read this completely. I gave it 3.5 stars, but I am also going to reap this because I don't see myself rereading it. And I read Damsel, which I'm giving a low 4-star, which I'm also going to reap from my collection because I just don't think I will reread it. However, there were some books that I read just mood reader that I'm going to show you just so you can have an idea of all of the books that I got off my shelf. So I also tried to read The Lost Bookshop, which I got about 60% into, and I DNF'd this, so it's being reaped from my collection as well. I read Kiss and Spell by Celestine Martin for my Black Hat book coven. I think I am going to reap this from my collection as well because while it was fun and stuff, I'm just never going to reread it. And I also read Fire in the Sky by Sophie Jordan. I did not like this book at all. I am going to also reap this from my collection as well. So these 2 books you will hear about more in my wrap-up when I do it. So overall, oh my god. So overall, I got 6 books off of my TBR shelf this month. I did end up going to Barnes & Noble recently where I purchased a book using a gift card, so I didn't spend any money on it. But I got The Empress by Kristen Cast. It just sounded interesting. It's like a tarot card, fantasy romance or whatnot. It's got some nice sprayed edges. So I'm going to add this to the shelf. I already put a prompt sticky note on it. And I won a copy of Phantasma from Crystal's Romantasy Readathon that I was a co-host for. So I got this as a prize, so I didn't have to pay money for this either, so thank you, Crystal, for that, and I've already put a note on that as well. So that means that I am now up to 129 books on this shelf to start off episode 2 at the beginning of February. And you will see the first book that I am going to pick for Read or Reap in my February TBR, so keep a lookout for that. But that is how the progress of this Read or Reap went. I started with 127 books. I'm now up to 129. So I didn't make really much progress, to be quite honest, but I did manage to get 6 physical books off of this shelf. So that's a little bit of progress in a different way. So let me know down in the comments if you guys enjoyed this. I mean, even if you didn't enjoy it, I'm still going to do it because it's going to help me. But let me know if you liked this kind of video. Also, let me know, because I did read books outside of the books that I picked for the random number generator, like these 3 books. So let me know in future episodes of Read or Reap if you want me to talk about these books that I read outside of the random number generator, or if you just want me to stick to talking about the books that the random number generator picks for me. Because I didn't know if I should include those in this vlog as well. So let me know your thoughts. So if you don't have any like constructive criticism or feedback for me, or let me know what you thought of any of these books if you have read them or whatnot, but would like to let me know that you made it to the end of this video, could you leave me a clock emoji? I don't know why, that just came to my mind. And with that, thank you so much for watching, and until my next video, good luck on clearing out your physical TBR. Bye!